We are just weeks away from the start of Philadelphia Eagles training camp, where we will undoubtedly learn a lot about this current Eagles team, but even still, with that being weeks away, the Eagles continue to make headlines during this offseason period, including some bold claims being made in recent days about several different players, with one of them being from a player himself, as well as a few other Eagles being slept on, and in addition to that, we have some very interesting trade rumors surrounding a few players, one of which you might not expect. So we're going to talk all about that in this video today, so let's not waste any time and get straight into it. So as I said, there have been several bold claims made about the Philadelphia Eagles in recent days, arguably the most notable one being from a Philadelphia Eagles player himself, and that player is wide receiver Devin Allen. Now, Devin Allen signed with the Eagles in the 2022 NFL offseason, making it his official return to football, as he had last played when he was in college as a member of the Oregon Ducks, where he had played for a handful of seasons before he eventually gave up football after he suffered some pretty serious injuries. And during his time away from football, Allen became a track and field star, as he turned himself into one of the best hurdlers in the entire world, becoming a two-time Olympic finalist in his event, the 110-meter hurdles, and just this year he ran that event in the 4th fastest time in the entire world at the time, which is now tied for the 7th fastest time in the entire world. Now, since returning to football in 2022, Allen went through the offseason with the Eagles last year, including the preseason, where he definitely showed some flashes, but he was eventually cut before the start of the season, but then he re-signed to the team's practice squad, where he remained throughout the course of the entire 2022 campaign, and then he was eventually re-signed to the roster when the season came to a close. So now, heading into the 2023 season, he will look to actually make the roster and have some type of impact, but can he actually do that? Well, the best trait that he has is undoubtedly his potential game-breaking speed, and if he's going to have any sort of success at the NFL level, that's probably going to be the thing that allows him to do that. And recently, he made a very bold claim about his speed, as he was asked if he's the fastest player in the NFL by TMZ Sports, and he said, quote, "I definitely am." I mean, even though he's not an established player like Tyreek Hill, who probably most people would consider the fastest in the game, or someone like a DK Metcalf, who was definitely in the conversation, Allen definitely has a very real case. I mean, he's a multiple-time Olympic finalist for an 110-meter race. That definitely speaks for itself. Now, Allen had mentioned in the same interview that he had raced Tyreek Hill in high school, and Hill ended up smoking him, but, you know, a lot could have changed since then. We really don't know if that would be the case if they raced again today, but even so, I do think that it's only fair that until Devon Allen does something in the NFL to prove that he's the fastest player in the league, Tyreek Hill should remain with that title, because he's proved it year after year after year. But I still do like the confidence coming from Allen, and I hope he's able to make the team and carve out a role for himself this year, maybe on special teams, because he definitely showed some flashes as a gunner last preseason, and he has the speed to also be a very good returner, so hopefully he's able to make the team, but that could be made difficult by the fact that Devin Allen is currently trying to earn a spot in the World Athlete Championships, which will be held in Budapest from August 19th to the 27th, and that's obviously right in the middle of the most important part of Eagles training camp. So if he ends up qualifying and then goes to Budapest, that probably would mean that he doesn't make the team, so I guess we'll see what happens. I personally hope that he can make the team, because I definitely think he could be valuable on special teams, and the Eagles could definitely use an upgrade at returner, so I think if they gave Allen the chance to do that, he could be effective in that role. But what do you guys think about Devin Allen calling himself the fastest player in the league, and do you actually think that he can make the Eagles roster this year? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Now, as I said, Devin Allen's comments about him being the NFL's fastest player was definitely a bold claim, and there have also been plenty more bold claims about the Eagles this offseason, and that includes this recent article from Alex Ballantyne of Bleacher Report that's titled "Hot Takes for Jalen Hurts, More Eagles Stars Ahead of Training Camp." And this article lists 3 different things, starting with a prediction that Jalen Hurts will not in fact take another leap forward in his development this season. Now, obviously, that prediction would stem from a previous report that came out about a month ago from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler that said that the Eagles expect Jalen Hurts to make another jump forward in his development this season to become an even more elite pocket passer, but this article doesn't seem to agree with that take, and their logic actually does make some sense, as Ballantyne said, quote, "Hurts made huge strides as a passer in 2022. In 2021, he ranked 23rd in passing EPA. With A.J. Brown added to the mix, he rose to number 12 in the league by the same metric. That isn't among the most elite in the game, but it's that level of passing combined with Hurts' rushing ability that makes him worth all that money. Hurts has times where he's elite from the pocket. The Super Bowl was certainly one of those times when he was 27 of 38 for 304 yards and a touchdown, but expecting a full season of that kind of play might be a bridge too far. Hurts proved everything he needed to last season. Another similar season is is more than enough for the Eagles to have a successful season, and that should be the expectation in 2023. So I definitely think that this is a very fair point, because at the end of the day, Hurts played incredible last season, becoming what I see as an elite pocket passer. Now obviously the article said that according to that one metric of EPA, he's not one of the most elite pocket passers in the league, but there's plenty of other stats that he put up from the pocket that were towards the top of the list in those respective stats or categories. So I definitely think he became at least close to an elite pocket passer last year, and he probably would have ended up winning MVP if he didn't get hurt and miss a couple games. So expecting another big leap from him in some people's eyes could be wishful thinking, because he just played so well last year. And the article is right, if he does play at that same level, which is MVP caliber, that'll be considered a successful season. However, what the article doesn't mention is the rest of the report from Jeremy Fowler that mentioned DeAndre Swift and the Eagles running backs catching passes out of the backfield as a huge reason for Hurts' possible development. Now, I made a video really diving deep into this back when the initial report came out, so you can check that out if you want after this video, but just real quick here, I think that this is a very important aspect of why Hurts could potentially develop, because last year and really in his entire career so far, Hurts has not checked the ball down to running backs really at all, and that just hasn't been a part of the Eagles offense. But now this year, it's really looking like that's something that the Eagles are going to look to incorporate heavily into their offense, with obviously DeAndre Swift coming over from the Detroit Lions, and arguably the most dangerous part of DeAndre Swift's game for opposing defenses to account for is his receiving ability out of the backfield. Now, I actually just made a whole video detailing how DeAndre Swift could help transform the Eagles' already elite offense, so again, you can go check that out after this one if you want. But that ability that DeAndre Swift and someone else like Kenneth Gainwell or even Boston Scott have to catch passes out of the backfield could end up helping Hurts take maybe not a huge jump forward, but surely another step in his development this season. Now, moving into the next bold claim, the article says that A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith will be the NFL's most productive receiving duo in the 2023 NFL season, and the article goes on to mention how the Dolphins had the NFL's most productive duo last year in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but the Eagles were not far behind, and it also mentions how the Eagles receiver duo may have a little bit more consistently at the quarterback position this year, because obviously Tua dealt with a bunch of injuries last year, so hopefully fingers crossed he's able to stay healthy this year, but you definitely can't count on it. And that's also not to mention the fact that Tyreek Hill is currently undergoing an investigation that can maybe end up giving him a suspension. And then the section caps off by saying, quote, even if Tagovailoa stays healthy and Hill doesn't get suspended, Brown and Smith are here to stay as one of the league's premium dynamic duos. I mean, honestly, I still think that the duo of Brown and Smith could be the league's most productive duo, or whatever you want to call it, next year, even if nothing really ends up happening with the Dolphins in terms of injuries or suspensions, because the Eagles receiver duo certainly has the talent to do that, and it's not like just because the Dolphins duo was able to be the most productive duo in the league last year means they're automatically going to repeat that performance this year as the top duo. So I guess we'll see. Brown and Smith were obviously amazing last year in their first year together, and they should only continue to grow in their second season together, and who knows, maybe that bold claim that they will be the most productive receiver duo in the league this year will come true. But now, moving into the final bold claim of the article, Ballentine makes the case that Eagles All-Pro cornerback James Bradberry is going to significantly drop off next year, and he started off in that section by mentioning how Bradberry struggled with the Giants in 2021, but bounced back with the Eagles in 2022, saying, quote, Bradberry went from giving up 8 touchdowns and a 61.7 completion percentage with the Giants to 2 touchdowns and a 45.3 completion percentage in 2022. Bradberry's efforts earned national recognition with a second-team All-Pro selection. Now that's the end of the quote, and then he goes on to say how it's going to be hard for Bradberry to replicate what he did last year because of the extremely high level that he played at in 2022, and he also said how the Eagles changing defensive coordinators from Jonathan Gannon to Sean Desai could affect his play, and then he finished it off with a statement about the quarterback position in general, saying, quote, that combined with the fact that cornerback is a naturally volatile position means that Bradberry is likely to come back to earth a little bit. In 2022, he gave up just 4.4 yards per target, but for much of his career, he has been closer to something around 6.4. As he goes into his age 30 season, don't expect another All-Pro season. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think that the points made here are fair, but I also think that the article failed to mention a couple key pieces of information. One is that Bradberry is the Eagles' cornerback number 2, not the cornerback 1 like he has been for most of his career, but the cornerback number 2, and last year he obviously benefited a lot from guarding the other team's opposing wide receiver 2, and that's one of the reasons that he was so successful, and he's going to be able to continue to do that in 2023, obviously with Darius Slay returning as well, and he's going to be the Eagles' cornerback number 1, so there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Bradberry is going to continue to play well primarily against opposing teams' wide receiver 2, but arguably the more important detail that was left out of this passage is that the Eagles' pass rush is just different, man. I mean, they're expected to have the best pass rush in the NFL once again again this year, just like last year, and that undoubtedly is going to elevate the plays of guys in the secondary, including James Bradberry, and that was no doubt a big reason he was able to be so successful last year, because the less time that a quarterback has to throw the ball, that makes it easier on the cornerbacks to cover their receivers. So those two things, honestly, are probably the two main reasons for Bradberry's tremendous success last year, and while yes, the cornerback position can be volatile, I see no reason to believe that Bradberry is going to regress heavily moving into next season. So this is definitely a questionable take on Bradberry, to say the least, and there's been a couple more questionable takes regarding other Eagles players that have come out recently, and we're going to talk all about that shortly. But just real quick here, I just want to say, if you are enjoying this video and want to see others like it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Around 80% of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed. If you're one of those people, you've been consistently enjoying the content and you love the Philadelphia Eagles, make sure you fix that right now and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss when any other videos are uploaded. I think it's a win-win for the both of us. And now with all that being said, let's get back into the video. Now, one of these questionable takes is regarding Devonta Smith, as Cody Benjamin of CBS Sports recently ranked the top 25 players under 25 heading into 2023, and a couple Eagles landed on this list, including Jalen Hurts, who was actually put at number 2. Of course, another Eagle who landed on this list was Devonta Smith, who was put at number 21, which honestly, I kind of think that's a little low for what he was able to do last year. And the thing that really caught my attention is that he's ranked one spot lower than this past year's Offensive Rookie of the Year, Garrett Wilson. So no disrespect to Garrett Wilson, because he's a phenomenal player who had a great rookie season under some questionable circumstances considering the Jets quarterback room last year, but I definitely still think that Devonta Smith is the better player at this point. I mean, if you just compare their numbers from last year, Devonta Smith's numbers are clearly better. And yeah, sure, like I said, Garrett Wilson definitely had more inconsistently at the quarterback position than Devonta Smith, but Wilson was also the Jets wide receiver 1. Devonta Smith was the Eagles wide receiver 2, and it can be argued that the Eagles didn't really figure out how to use both Smith and Brown together in the offense until later in the year, and the second half of the season definitely seemed more productive for Devonta. Plus, the article also ranks CeeDee Lamb over Devonta Smith, which, I don't know, maybe this is my hot take, but I really do think that Devonta Smith is better than CeeDee Lamb. I mean, sure, Lamb's stats last year were technically better, but he also had way more targets than Devonta, and he was the Cowboys wide receiver 1. And I really think that if you were to put Devonta Smith on the Cowboys in place of CeeDee last year, his numbers would have been similar, if not better. And on top of this, Smith is ranked behind some other guys at different positions that I don't necessarily agree with either, but it's hard to compare different positions, so I'm not really too concerned with that. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Should Devonta Smith be ranked higher than some of these other guys? Is he being slightly disrespected by being put this low on the list? I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on that. And now finally, moving into the last questionable take that was recently put out about the Eagles, we must talk about some potential Eagles trade candidates, as Jake Grill of Bleacher Report put out an article that named 3 guys the Eagles could look to move this offseason, and the third guy that was featured on the list was kind of a surprise. Now, the first 2 guys listed here sort of made sense. I mean, the first guy is Derek Barnett, which obviously his place on this team is in question with all the depth the Eagles have on the defensive line and at the edge rusher and defensive end positions, along with the fact that last year, the Eagles defensive line and pass rush did not skip a beat without him after he tore his ACL in week 1, not to mention all the boneheaded penalties and plays that he's had in the past in his career with the Eagles, and just the fact that he never really lived up to the hype of being a first-round pick. All those things combined could potentially contribute in him eventually being moved this offseason before the start of the 2023 regular season. And then the next guy on the list is Quez Watkins, which, while I personally don't agree with getting rid of him because I think that he's going to have a bounce-back year this season, I get why he would be included on this list with all the struggles he had last year in big moments and the speculation that he could be traded this offseason. However, the third name that was included on this list was Kenneth Gainwell, which completely caught me off guard because really everything we've heard about Gainwell this entire offseason has been very positive, and he's also coming off a really good playoff run. But Real's reasoning for including him on this list has nothing to do with what Gainwell has shown recently, and it's more of an issue of where Gainwell is slotted on the Eagles' depth chart. As the article reads, quote, "The Eagles have a crowded running back room heading into training camp. There are offseason acquisitions DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny, and there are also a pair of returning players in Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott. Philadelphia runs the ball a lot, so it makes sense to have multiple backs to utilize, but having 4 could be one too many, especially if one of them could be traded to acquire either a solid player at a larger position of need or a draft pick or 2. Gainwell could be the best trade chip considering he's only 24 and is a dual threat back. However, he's going to be blocked on the Eagles' depth chart by Swift and Penny, who both should have sizable roles in the offense. while Philadelphia shouldn't give away Gainwell for nothing, it may be smart to shop him a bit and see what his market is like. Otherwise, he may not get a ton of opportunities to touch the ball in 2023. Now look, I kinda get the reasoning here that the Eagles may have an overcrowded backfield and not all these guys can have the ball at the same time. Real definitely made a compelling argument, but I still just don't think that trading Gainwell would be a smart move. I mean, first off, from what we've heard, it seems like the Eagles could be getting ready to use Gainwell in a much larger role than we initially thought when the Eagles acquired Swift and Penny this offseason. Plus, Kenny Gainwell is very talented, and I don't think it would be smart to get rid of him before giving him a legit chance to show what he can do. I mean, I really just think that Gainwell's a guy who, if you give him the opportunity to have more touches, to sort of be your lead running back, which obviously I still don't think he's going to get this year, I think he can shine, and I think it would be dumb for the Eagles to just get rid of that before actually seeing what he's able to do in a bigger role. And finally, I think that the biggest reason it would be stupid to trade him is because he's the only Eagles running back under contract after this year. So, I mean, say DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny both have great years for the Eagles, they might end up earning bigger contracts, ones that the Eagles aren't willing to pay, and if you trade Gainwell, then you have no real option that can step in as the RB1 if these two guys leave, and then the Eagles would be forced to go out next offseason, scramble a little bit, and find guys that can contribute in that role, and you'd really just have no consistency in the backfield. So really, overall, I just don't think that trading Kenny Gainwell would be a good idea, and I actually think that he's going to have a role on this Eagles team this year, and in his opportunities so far in the league, he's shown that he has talent, and he's shown that he can produce. So I think in a bigger role, he can have a lot of success, and I just can't wait to see what he's going to do this season. And really, for the Eagles as a whole, I'm just so excited to see what they can be, and I'm ready to have Eagles football back. And as I said way back at the start of this video, training camp is not far away, and we're going to be covering that with videos, shorts, live streams when that comes around. So make sure you subscribe to this channel again so you don't miss any of that coming in the future. And if you did enjoy this video and want to show some support, you can drop a like on it. Also, leave a comment down below giving your thoughts and opinions out of anything that I mentioned in this video. And if you do want to watch that video talking about how DeAndre Swift could potentially transform the Eagles offense, you can go watch it right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.